team decided to be responsible for streaming the game. And for large chunks, all us at home watching on a stream saw was a white box with an orange question mark in the middle. And the Twitter machine exploded, and it was a very frustrating game to watch. That's also the game that and Zach, you may have been there, but that's the game where allegedly Eddie Johnson punched a player at the end of the game, also not on film.
Yeah, Eddie.
So it was. it was.
You know, that's as good a setup as any into our debate.
It was a ridiculous game. It was played on this just tiny weird pitch at Kezar, and it was just an ugly, terrible game for the 5 minutes that we got to watch. And you know, it was a terrible, terrible game for both teams, and we just happened to eke out a goal from Cordell Cato and win 1-0. It was a bad game.
I also I just have to say about San Jose beating Chivas that I called it, that they were going to be they were going to be the first team to get their win. However, none of us called it that Montreal was actually going to earlier in the day record their win.
Dennis did.
Dennis did? Oh,
yeah, he did. Remember?
Oh no, Nate shows up too. Oh man, you sneaky.
He stuck with his Canadian brethren. He said,
"Oh, that's
you
right."
Remember the Canadian love bit or something? Yeah.
Something like that. It worked. I'm surprised myself.
I blocked that out.
Yeah, I definitely was the most wrong, as I predicted that all 4 of the winless teams would stay winless. I saw Chivas pulling out a draw in San Jose, which, to be fair to them, it wasn't that far off. They had a couple of huge missed opportunities, and arguably a red card for Alan Gordon could have changed the game. I definitely did not see Montreal, but you know, Philly's been terrible too. That was you know, a clash of the bottom dwellers, so that was interesting. Is there anything else to say about Montreal Philly, or is that just kind of?
No, just that. Really, just that.
Just that.
Anybody wants to talk about that game at all?
I will exercise my self-control.
Yes,
Josh.
That's good.
Well, Dennis, as the only guy whose team didn't play a game this week, what game would you like to talk about?
I'm not sure. I just joined, so I'm not sure what games you guys have actually gone over. If we're just starting to go over.
Just San Jose and
just
Montreal.
San Jose Chivas. Yeah.
Just San Jose Chivas, eh?
Yeah.
Let's go to Seattle, Colorado. Let's hear Pete's thoughts on that one.
I mean, man, there's not a lot to say right now other than we are enjoying it.
Hey, more impressive win, Pete. Y'all's win against Colorado or our win against Dallas?
I gotta say yours versus Dallas only because of, you know, perceived rankings, like, you know, power rankings or perception of how the team has been playing. You know, Dallas was 5-1-1 going into that game and playing at home, you know. But, you know, Ian, it goes back to your point from a few weeks ago that this year earning a red card has just been a death sentence.
Right, and that's actually why I think Seattle's win is more impressive, because both our teams are playing at home, but Colorado stayed at 11 men the whole game, and I feel like there's not much of a difference between Dallas and Colorado, even though Dallas is beaten up on a couple teams. Like they're you know, they've won some, but their wins are against like Montreal and Portland and stuff. So.
Well, thank you. You know, it's incredibly fun to watch. Unfortunately, what could have been the most fun that I've had at a game this year, I was in Florida on business and had to watch from afar. But yeah, it's great. The amount of, you know, interplay between, you know, Dempsey and Oba right now is just insane. Like, those guys are feeling the love between each other. They seem to really enjoy playing together and get it, and, you know, they're trying just fancy shit that works. And, you know, that was the thing that we kept talking about with Dempsey, is that even when, you know, at the end of last year he wasn't scoring, like, he tries shit, right? Like, that's his play style, is that he's got insane ball skills, and he's just going to try stuff, and that trying shit is working now. You know, he's taking 3 defenders on and making a pinpoint pass that turns into a goal. It's hard not to like watching it right now, and yeah, I mean, it feels good. I certainly don't think that Philly has the answer. I have no expectations that we'll get anything but 3 points at home against Philadelphia this week. But all of that said, I am very interested in seeing how we hold up against teams like LA, San Jose, and RSL. You know, teams that have typically been our dynamite, that have figured out the way that we've played, or sorry, Zach, to be brutally honest, in San Jose, I'm curious to what happens to this game when we go back to a hack fest. You know, and we've seen that. We've seen that the Sounders have had trouble when that was the case. You know, Toronto shut us down by keeping our creative players, you know, in check. And so it'll be interesting. RSL, you know, like Josh has said about Portland, RSL has been such a quality team for so many years, and they have always been the team that's been the monkey on our back as far as, like, just can't beat them in the regular season. We've even done well against LA at home most of the time, but RSL just seems to be that team for us, and as well as they've been playing lately, I'm certainly, you know, circling that game on my calendar.
Well, RSL's that team for a lot of people. I mean, they're that team for Portland. They're that team for you. They're that team for LA. Last year they were, at least. So, you know.
Well, look at Vancouver the weekend.
Really good.
Apparently that's not the enemy for Vancouver, because RSL went up 2-0. I think it was even before the 10th minute, and then.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing about Vancouver tying that game. That was the most ludicrous tie I've ever seen.
No, I don't disagree with you.
Like, the amount of improbable shit that had to happen for Vancouver to tie that game. First of all, Raimondo had to screw up twice. Perfect Raimondo, probably the best goalkeeper in MLS history, screws up twice. One, he spills a catch, an easy catch that frickin' like Troy Perkins can make. And, you know, and they score their first, and then it's whatever. And then they're about to run out the clock. It's like 3:50 with their 4 minutes of stoppage time, and they have 3:50 into it. And Saborio takes a terrible second touch, not his first touch, a second touch that gets away from him. Vancouver slides in, steals it. Fernandez shoots it. It knuckles. Raimondo is screened and reacts late, and it goes past him. And it's a ridiculous shot to be. You know, it's one of those shots that we were talking about last week where MLS players can't really hit them from 30 yards out, but that guy did. Yeah. And they tied the game, and it was so freaking bizarre.
But it happened, right?
You see that so rarely at Salt Lake, because everybody's always exhausted by the 80th or 75th minute. You very rarely see people really press at the end of the games there. I think it probably just shocked Salt Lake that they were really, really pressing on them. And I mean, they're not. Yes, they are more used to playing at altitude, but they're not immune to its effects. Everybody gets gassed up there, and I think it's really impressive that Vancouver just said, like, screw it, let's just push and see what happens, instead of doing what, you know, I don't know, most teams do, which is just, you know, get so tired that you're just kind of waiting for the game to end in the last 10 minutes up there. So I'm certainly impressed that they.
And you know, RSL has dropped. RSL's dropped a lot of points in the last 15 minutes of games this year. That has been the thing for them, is that they are conceding goals late in places they should be getting 3 points. I mean, they could be top of the table by 5 points right now.
Five of their 6 goals, I think, allowed. I saw earlier today.
They're you know, people were talking about this with Portland. I mean, RSL is a way better pressing team than Portland, but even still, you're going to be tired at the end of a game if you press the whole time, and that's just a simple fact of physiology. So the fact that RSL is giving up goals late, I think, is just a consequence of them doing a lot of running and doing a lot of pressing throughout the game.
Well, Ian, you said that our win was more impressive, but yours was certainly up there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I have a thought that I think Dennis can very much relate to. It's when your team is starting to look a little bit good after, being really, really terrible for a while, except for that one fluke year. You look for a whole bunch of reasons as to why this is a fluke. Like, you try and convince yourself so many ways that this is a fluke, we're going to continue to suck. And one of those reasons is that, we can't take advantage of when teams go down to 10 men, because we couldn't against Columbus. Well, we did. Like, to an extent I thought it wasn't even possible for DC, especially against Dallas. I mean, scoring 4 goals after they got a guy sent off in the 38th minute for a legitimate red card, to be sure.
Oh, for sure.
And then
it's not a legitimate. In fact, I have to say this because I did watch the condensed version of that match, and it happened to feature the Dallas announcers, and that guy has to have made the biggest homer statement I've heard this year, which is he said, these are his words. He said, "There is no place in the world that any two softer yellows would result in a red card."
So, okay, he did say that, but I mean, watching the entire game, they saw slow motion replays later, and Kevin Hartman, who's the color commentator of that game, longtime MLS goalie, one of my favorite non-DC United players, looked back and said, "You know what? That actually probably was a legitimate yellow card, and it was probably
that was a straight red card."
And he was on a yellow already.
I know, but there's no way that like to even begin to call it soft. I'm glad he changed it up after seeing a replay, but I mean that's an ugly tackle.
It was, and I was actually pretty impressed with Kevin Hartman. But anyway, so then Eddie Johnson does what apparently he can do, which is cross a beautiful ball into the box for Fabian Espindola to run onto and head it into the goal. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then it was on. Second half, it was awesome. So
let me ask you this then. If you take away that one assist, if somebody else puts that ball into Espindola and you have an offensive explosion of 4 goals after a red card and Eddie Johnson's not involved and the history of this season so far, at what point do you stop being content with the hold-up play that we've both discussed? Like, I do think Eddie Johnson is playing very well for not scoring, but, like, he's getting paid enough that he has to also score. He has to do both of those things.
I'm already not content, but I'm also realizing, I also understand that it's not his fault, because we don't have the width. We don't have the guys who can put in those balls like Eddie Johnson apparently can.
Eddie Johnson passes to himself.
Sean Franklin can do it, and actually that's sort of what sparked the run in the second half, as Sean Franklin started to go forward when Dallas was down a man. But I fear that Sean Franklin isn't going to do that if we're not up a man. And I feel like he has to. That's, like, again, I feel like I've said like 4 or 5 times this year, either on here or on the sub or both, that Sean Franklin's role is to be the Andy Nahar, like a poor man's Andy Nahar, who goes up, he sparks the attack, he can provide crosses into Eddie Johnson if necessary, because no one else can do that. Nick DeLeon can't really do that. Chris Pontius could do that, but he's going to be out for the year. And that's about all we've got on wide. Chris Rolfe has been doing an interesting job. I don't think he's a crossing guy either, though. So,
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that Eddie has shown that is to be effective as a scorer, is that he needs, wide service for sure. Yeah.
That's where he's going to be effective in the national team.
Yeah. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I promise I will let you talk about Eddie Johnson and the national team. That will definitely be part of our discussion today. Do we need to say anything about, let's see, I guess Wednesday's blowout by Red Bull over Houston?
Only that New York is dangerous again.
Yeah, okay. So
they had a little mini. They had the same amount of points as Portland did after 6, and now they're fine.
Did anybody see any of New England KC? Speaking of late goals,
I saw
late goals. Oh man!
I actually saw the 80th minute on of that game.
Oh yeah,
DC
that's
over.
Perfect timing. You could have tuned in at the 90th minute, and you would have missed absolutely nothing. And then suddenly it just all went bonkers. Well, you would have missed Colin's first red card.
Nope, that's Kansas City.
Yeah.
Yeah, New England versus Kansas City.
I'm sorry, I thought you said New York versus Columbus.
No, I was talking about New England, Kansas City.
Okay, let's keep talking about that then. That sounds great. Yeah, first red.
Hey, you got a red card! I know.
First red in history.
Yeah, I mean, what just for a man.
Their center back too. I feel like he gets a yellow card every other game.
And a lot of them are red worthy. He's on MLS Instant Replay more often than not.
Yeah, somehow he is a remarkable fouler. I look at Ka. No, that's not true. No, Ka is still more reckless. I mean, the thing about Colin is that he's actually a good player, whereas Ka is fucking idiot. But he is reckless, and he's also a fairly dirty player. I mean, I understand why KC fans like him, but he's very, very shirt grabby and pushy, and and he's prone to the odd, wild studs up challenge. It's remarkable.
He gets on the nerves of literally everybody. I mean, even Jimmy Nielsen sprayed water at him at some point last year, right? So
I feel like he's actually gotten multiple disciplinary committee retro suspensions for things that should have been red, but somehow he keeps escaping it in the game.
It's the Frenchness. I think it's just the Frenchness. If he was an American, people would be like, "You meant to do that." He's French. He just looks kind of disaffected and philosophical about it. And they're like, "Oh."
I wish
he's got the whole Captain Picard look going too.
Yeah.
The French cap. That's good stuff. I guess we can talk about Aduro's pizza hair, if that's a thing. That's another note in our bevy of things to talk about here.
Okay, so who wrote the? Because I asked Chris about this. Chris didn't write this red sentence. Who wrote the red sentence?
I wrote that red sentence.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I had to double check my facts, but I was correct that Aduro has 0 goals and 0 assists this year.
Yeah.
And
but he did one time celebrate a goal by pretending to eat pizza. So.
He did last year when he was scoring goals. He did actually eat a piece of pizza. So maybe this is the mojo that he's trying to get back.
Which was really odd because last week we were talking about weird goal celebrations, and then in actual thread itself, before that match, I had actually posted the celebration from the year before, which is really weird seeing with pizza hair. Then after,
Guys, new theory: Dominic Oduro listens to the pod.
I got it.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
He's our best friend.
That would be amazing.
Well, we have to start calling him then Dominic Aduro, friend of the show.
I think we're only allowed to do that if we actually have him on the pod.
I do not think that is true at all.
Okay, fine. I'll call him friend of the show. I don't know.
Friend of the show. Friend of the show. Oh, hairstyling genius, Dominic Oduro. That does make anything. Does anybody else remember Jabril Cisse?
Yes.
That man had some bad hair. This makes all of his stuff just look totally banal. Because he never went.
Wait, by bad hair, did you mean awesome hair, Josh?
Well, there's a certain point where it does that kind of Lady Gaga thing where you cross into something. Like Oduro just. He got that and it just went wrong on him. He was like, it's like you get really excited to take an open shot, and instead you kick it and it goes behind you somehow.
Like that one guy who from Philly from earlier. It's like that freak out moment that he talked about.
What?
Old our second episode callback. Never mind.
Yeah, all that I'm wondering with Oduro is if he's going to keep that, kind of like similar to Wondolowski with the W, if he's going to keep that pizza in his hair to keep the mojo going or something.
Well, he didn't score though, right?
No.
Who scored in that game? Was it It wasn't Chris, was it? I mean.
Oh, I guess I'm mistaken.
No, it was Arrieta on a PK.
That's right.
Yeah.
That might be what he's going for, though. Just apparently, somebody was saying that on his Twitter feed, it's like every third tweet he's at Papa John's. So I'm not sure.
Oh man,
that,
just the worst pizza you could.